On Sunday night, the Dallas Cowboys will be back on a football field and they will be playing a regular season game. It'll be against the rival New York Giants. And tonight, we'll talk about the three matchups to watch in the game. We'll talk about the injury report from Wednesday, first of the season. And yes, maybe we're able to sneak in a quick reaction to Nick Bosa's deal and what it could mean for Micah Parsons. Without any further ado, let's get to it. Here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into ADZ Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network with a lot more content coming your way. Make sure that you check out adcsports.com/Dallas. And as always, remember to hit the like button for me because every single thumbs up puts this show in front of more and more Cowboys fans. And that is the single biggest thing that you can do to help out the show. What is up, everyone? It's game week. And not only is it game week, tomorrow there's the NFL kickoff. It will be between the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Detroit Lions. Maybe the Chiefs won't be without Travis Kelce. They have some drama going on, but it will be only the start to the week because a few days later, the Cowboys will be taking on the Giants. They will be visiting them at MetLife Stadium, by the way. And tonight, we finally can talk some football. We finally can talk about some matchups to watch in the game. That is exactly what we will be doing tonight. And let me say hi really quickly in the chat. We've got Joey Bella, we've got Toxic Tom, we've got Double R, Ronnie over on Facebook, Katharina, Jack. By the way, shout out to Joey Bella because he trolled everybody last night on a show that I was a guest on in the Cowboys in Spanish world. And he dropped a feliz cumpleaños in the chat, a happy birthday in the chat, a certified primetime running gag here on the show. And Joey Vela caught everyone off guard in the Mexico Cowboys fans world. So it was pretty funny to see because everyone was like, oh, happy birthday. And they all fell for it. So shout out to Joey Vela because he nailed that. He's actually saying right now, I'm still laughing about last night. But let's get to some football. Let's get to some football tonight. Who are you most excited to watch on Sunday night? Which Cowboy are you the most excited to watch? Let me know in the chat. Let's get hyped up for the game because it's going to be a good one. I know that the New York Giants have their issues. Last week, we were talking about their offensive line and how it was ranked 29th in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. We know they have some issues in there, but they're good, man. This is a team that made the playoffs. This is a team that won in the wild card round. They've got a good head coach in Brian Dable, better offensive coordinator than many others in the NFL. Like he's one of the better ones. I think a future head coaching candidate for sure in Mike Kafka. So it can be a dangerous game, right? On the road. The last time that these two faced each other, as you guys know, was the Thanksgiving game recently in 2022. And it wasn't necessarily the most down to the wire NFC East game that we've seen, but it was certainly a challenge in several ways. So I cannot wait to get into some matchups that I'm looking forward to seeing tonight. But first, let's see some of your answers here really quickly. Jack goes with Micah Parsons, and he's going to be my first matchup to watch, by the way, spoiler alert. But Lance is also going with Micah. Danny Savage goes with Micah, but adds Deuce Vaughn. Toxic Tom goes with Dak Prescott, which I totally feel and understand as well. So I'm good with that one. Jack says number 4. Let's see here. Gilbert goes with Micah Parsons. Rita on Facebook goes with, I want to see how Dak is going to hook up with his wide receivers, right? There's a new guy out there called Brandon Cooks, who is supposed to be one of the biggest differences between last year's offense and this year's offense. Beyond the coaching stuff, we know that the personnel stuff, like we talked about with Cowboys insider Michael Gelkin earlier in the week, is really what's going to drive that change for the Cowboys, offensively speaking. But let's start with Micah, because to me, he's part of the number one matchup to watch on Sunday night's game versus the New York Giants. And I'm specifically talking about Micah Parsons versus Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas. Now, this comes with a little bit of an asterisk, because if you know a thing or two about the Cowboys, you know that Micah is going to move around. So it's not like Parsons is going to face up again. It's going to square up against Thomas every single play, but it's going to be a fun matchup. And we know that Micah wants it, right? If you remember last year, they were talking some trash on social media. They were going back and forth. Micah was like, "What are you talking about? I own Andrew Thomas." I don't remember the exact words. I'm paraphrasing here, but there was some trash talk involved in that game. And Micah, I would say, got the best of Andrew Thomas because he got the 2 sacks and he disrupted the game in so many other ways. The Giants were constantly getting away from Micah. And that's one of the things that I'm really intrigued about with this week's game. Is it going to be a similar game plan, or are they going to trust Thomas to take care of Micah Parsons the traditional way, which is a very tough ask to do to any NFL offensive tackle? But if you're facing Micah with Andrew Thomas, maybe you feel in the liberty to go ahead and do that, because let's give Thomas the flowers that he deserves. He really is one of the best young offensive linemen in the entire NFL. So I'm all for watching those two go at it consistently. But what I mean with the Giants going away from Micah is they threw screen passes his way, similarly to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They did the same when they played Micah Parsons. There was a lot of reading off of Micah, whether it was RPOs, whether it was screens that they would throw their way just to not have to worry about actually blocking Micah. The Giants were doing something similar, or they were running those bootlegs away from Micah. They were running all of those fakes. They were running short routes and putting a lot of stress on the Cowboys horizontally on the defense. They were not allowing Micah to really get it going in the pass rush world. However, I do wonder if the game plan is going to be very different for the Giants in this game. We know how tricky the Giants can be. We know that they've got Darren Waller joining their ranks. More on that later. We're going to also look at Saquon Barkley for the Giants and what he can do as a pass catcher in those quick game looks. So I don't know if Micah is actually going to get all of those looks traditionally versus Andrew Thomas, but I sure hope that it happens. He had 5 pressures last year. Micah Parsons going up against one of the best young tackles in the league has to be must-watch television. But again, the bad thing about this matchup, or not bad, but like unattractive thing about this matchup, is that Dan Quinn is going to want to play around with Micah. So we might not see Micah all that much against the Giants left tackle. We might see a lot of Micah versus the Giants right tackle, which is in a very different conversation than Thomas, because Evan Neal, going into his second year, is looking to change the perception that we have from him, because he disappointed as a rookie. Sure, he's adapting to the NFL life, but still, first round draft pick, top 10. He was supposed to do a little bit more as a rookie, and he had some struggles early on. We'll see if he bounces back in this year too, or if it's more of the same. And if it is more of the same, then the Cowboys are going to surely want to exploit that from the Giants' offensive line. But we talked about it last week. These Giants' O-line could be better than last year's, but it's nothing certain for them, because you're betting on Evan Neal's second-year jump, and you are betting on a rookie offensive center that we'll talk more about later in the show tonight. But Micah Parsons versus Thomas, my number 1 matchup to watch. My number 2 matchup, and yes, I'm being a little bit impatient here, but this is like 1.B. This is not going to be my number 2 matchup. This is going to be my 1.B, because now I'm going to flip the script. And I'm not going to talk about the Giants left tackle. I'm going to talk about the Cowboys left tackle, Tyron Smith, manning a position that we have not seen him play in a long time. Because last year, he was injured before the season began. And when he came back, lo and behold, he was not playing on his natural spot. He was not playing on the left side. He was actually playing right tackle for the first time since his rookie year. How is he going to look against the talented and rising Kayvon Thibodeaux? Because sure, he was also, quote unquote, disappointing. And I think that's a strong word for what happened with Kayvon, because he did show a lot of the flashes as a rookie. And he was particularly dangerous against the Cowboys last year. In that same game, Kayvon Thibodeaux had 9 QB pressures. He put his hands on Dak Prescott 5 different times, and he had a pressure rate of 28%, which was about double than Micah's in that particular game. So Kayvon Thibodeaux is rising. He's a good player. He performed well in prime time, which I don't put a lot of weight into. A lot of people do. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to buy into the primetime storylines right now. But Kayvon is up for the challenge. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him go up against Tyron Smith, who we know what he can do when he's at his best. But we are also at a point in which every year we're going to be wondering, okay, how is Tyron Smith going to look like at this point of his career? And then if he does a good job this season, 2024 will come and we'll be like, if he stays around, we're going to be like, oh, is this the year that Tyron Smith takes a huge hit to his game or not with father time? Because he's been missing time, and I understand that has to do with his age, but when he's been healthy, he's been usually playing at a very high level. Even last year's decline could have been attributed to the fact that, sorry, he was playing a position that he isn't usually playing. So really looking forward to seeing how he does. And if Tyler Smith cannot go, then it's going to be even more important, because I don't know if the Cowboys are going to want Tyron to live on an island while they try to have their interior offensive line deal with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams by themselves, them three. So we're going to see what the game plan could be there in pass pro. I'm really intrigued by that. Kayvon versus Tyron should be a pretty fun battle. And I think it's going to be one that we're going to be talking about after the game on Sunday, honestly, because it could dictate the way that the game goes. And the same for the opposite with Micah versus Andrew Thomas. Rita says that's definitely the matchup. Jack says, I hope they do help Tyron. And the question is going to be, who's going to be doing the helping? Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. Because if you're sliding towards Tyron Smith's way and Tyler Smith is not playing, and we talked a little bit about it last night, who's going to be the left guard? Is it going to be TJ Voss as an undrafted free agent, kind of solidifying himself as the swing guard of the Cowboys? Or is it going to be Asim Richards, who did very well in the preseason at left tackle, and maybe the Cowboys could be confident in moving him inside, but having him play on the same side of the offensive line, as opposed to switching TJ from one spot to another? The unofficial depth chart has Asim Richards as a left guard, but TJ Voss, man, TJ Voss did a great job at guard, so he could be the call too. Perhaps the most surprising outcome would be Chuma Edoga, honestly, because we know that he was dealing with an injury in the preseason, and we know that it wasn't the best training camp for him either way. He just happens to be a very versatile lineman that could move around easily. But that's going to be what dictates the game in the trenches, which I believe was what gave the Cowboys their wins last year versus the Giants. A little bit of fun facts before we move on to the next matchup, though. Cowboys versus Giants in week 1 has happened 11 times in history. In those 11 times, the Cowboys have won 10 of those games. The Cowboys dominate the Giants in week 1, And as fun as these stats can be for fans and everything, they're not gonna play that much of a role in how things shake out on Sunday. So I'm not getting as excited because of that stat, but I still think that number is impressive. And they've also faced each other 4 times on Sunday Night Football in Week 1 since 2007, and the Cowboys are 3-1 in those 4. Toxic Tom says lost to the Giants opening night of AT&T. That's the loss. That's the loss. 12-1 in the last 5 years, says Kevin Finney. It's amazing how the Cowboys have done against the Giants. And it's so interesting to think about the fact that in 2016, Dak Prescott went 0-2 versus the Giants because he lost in Week 1, right? And then, wait, but then how does that make sense, right? Like, if they're 10-1 and then they did lose versus the Giants in Week 1 of the 2016 season, all right, we can figure all of that out later, but he did lose those 2 games. Dak Prescott did versus the Giants in 2016, because I remember we were all talking about the streak and everything, and then that streak came to an end versus the Giants, who had also beat you earlier in the year. So pretty crazy stuff. Danny Savage says that no, Dak started like 5-0. No, he didn't. Didn't the Cowboys lose Week 1 versus the Giants in the game that Terrence Williams did not go out of bounds? That was it. No, that was the game that Dak lost. And then they went like on a roll and they got to 11-1, something like that. It was a crazy streak. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. We can figure it out later, or the chat can do it for us. But I do remember that's the Terrence Williams game where he didn't go out of bounds and they lost that one. 2016 was the last time the Giants beat Dallas, says Bruce, and Catherine also with the fact, damn, not even in 2020. That's crazy. That is crazy stuff. But they did lose both of them, as Donald says in the chat, because that's when the streak came to an end. Because it wasn't an undefeated streak. It always had that one, and that was from the Week 1 loss. So anyways, moving on, as we said, those statistics are not going to be playing safety. They're not going to be playing linebacker when the game kicks off on Sunday night. But it is fun trivia. It is fun trivia. Jaron Kears is going to be a central part of Sunday night's game, in my eyes, versus the New York Giants. Because, as you guys know, Jaron Kears is usually the guy that gets the call from the Cowboys to erase opposing tight ends. And I do believe in Darren Waller. I know he's somewhat controversial among NFL fans and even fantasy football fans, which is a whole different world, because some people do not see him as worthy of the hype that once surrounded Darren Waller. Because if you remember, there was 1 year or 2 years that Darren Waller was up there in the conversation with Travis Kelce. And sure, Kelce is the best, in my opinion, right now in the NFL. And I don't know how somebody else could earn that role until Travis Kelce shows signs of declining. But Darren Waller is legitimate, in my opinion. And more than likely, Jaron Kears is going to be on him for most of the game, wearing that number 1 in his new jersey, wearing that new number. It's going to be Jaron Kears against Darren Waller. And make no mistake about it, not only is Waller going to be the starting tight end for the Giants, he is going to be, I think, the number 1 weapon for Daniel Jones. Because sure, you've got Hudgens and you've got Jaleel Hyatt and you've got Darius Slayton, you've got Saquon Barkley if you're Daniel Jones. But I think that the best weapon that he has offensively is his tight end. And then there's the Bellinger conversation that we could also get into, because the Giants could be out here running 12 personnel versus the Cowboys and trying to force them into base defensive looks. But right now, because I do agree with Toxic's comment about Waller's health and how he has struggled to stay healthy, that's likely not going to matter in Week 1. As long as he's healthy, I am a believer that Darren can really have a bounce back year with the Giants after many years with the Raiders. And he has to be one of your main concerns entering this game if you are the Cowboys. Now, we assume immediately that it's going to be Jaron Kears on him, who has done a good job versus several of the top tight ends in the NFL. We've seen him go up against elite tight ends in the past and done good work against them. But again, Brian Dable, the New York Giants, they're going to get a lot of eye candy involved. They're going to run a lot of motion. They're going to get Jaron Kears in some complicated spots, I believe. Because if you are the Giants and you're looking at this game objectively, and you look at Jalen Hyatt, who is pretty fast, he's the first round rookie for the New York Giants. You know what he can do. Wait, I'm not sure if he went in the first round, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because I know that he was everywhere in the mock drafts. He went until the third round, Jalen Hyatt did. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. It's crazy that he was mocked in the first round so much, and then we knew that he was going to drop. But, anyways, Jalen Hyatt, even if he has impressed in training camp and in the preseason, even if he does get a start, and the same for Hodgins and the same for Slayton and every one of the other wideouts that the Giants have, they're going to be going up against Stephon Gilmore. They're going to be going up against Trayvon Diggs, Dayron Bland. Chances are that if you want to find that one matchup that you want to exploit, other than Saquon Barkley versus the linebackers, which is also going to be key, it's got to be Waller. It's got to be finding ways to get the football to Darren Waller. And I think that is the most likely plan of attack for the Giants. Now, I agree with who said it. Somebody said it here in the chat. Lance was, Saquon is my main concern. I agree that Saquon is also a key matchup, especially in the passing game with all of those deceptions that they like to throw defenses way. The Giants do. The advantage out of this whole thing is that if you guys remember that game in Thanksgiving, it was one or two very painful drives, very long drives for the Cowboys defense. But Dan Quinn's unit adjusted. They really did. They settled down. They used their speed to really put a halt to the Giants' attack. And then maybe there were some ugly moments later in the game, but the Cowboys figured the Giants out last time that they faced them. So, as Mike McCarthy said, though, in the press conference earlier this week, not today's press conference, the one that happened on Monday, I believe, he said, hey, we're going to get about 80% of unscouted looks. So it's going to be a whole lot of new stuff from the Giants, and it's going to be just about trusting those instincts and really using that speed, but not overshooting your gap, not wanting to sacrifice your responsibility to make the play or anything like that. That's what the Cowboys are going to be dealing with on Sunday night. If they win in the trenches, they're going to try to manufacture all sorts of easy touches on the outside, and it's going to be a fun game to watch, in my opinion, honestly. That's where Overshown is going to be missed, says Cam. And on one hand, I see your point. On the other hand, did we really expect the Marvin Overshown to get a whole lot of snaps in week one? I wouldn't have. I don't think that he would have been Leighton Van Der Esch, Damon Clark for playing time in week one. That being said, the guy that really could be missed, and in this world in which we're talking about how blurry the difference between a safety and a linebacker is on the Cowboys defense, it's got to be Donovan Wilson, who missed practice today too. And I was going to get into this later on the show, but this is as good as time as any. Donovan Wilson did not practice. He is listed with the same calf strain that he had early in training camp. Patrick Nosey Walker reported earlier that he was out of the walking boot since a while back. So on one hand, we expected Donovan Wilson to be more than ready to go for week one, but today's injury report was a concern, in my opinion. Like, the fact that he's not practicing now could be worrisome. Now, Is this just the Cowboys waiting until the last possible second to get him into practice? It could be. It really could. So far, though, missed the first official practice for game day, the same as Tyler Smith with his hamstring strain, and the same as Sam Williams, the edge rusher, who is suffering from a turf toe. And while I'm excited about Sam Williams this season, while I'm excited about his breakout year that we've all been talking about since January of this year, I'm not worried about the depth at edge rusher. The Cowboys have guys that are going to show up. They've got Dante Fowler, Armstrong. If Sam Williams cannot go, the Cowboys are going to be fine. However, Dono, who is a flying missile on the football field, is going to be missed against the Giants offense that is going to, again, stress you horizontally. Maybe they're not going to do a lot of very vertical stuff because your offensive line cannot hold up to even get into a position where they can do that. It's going to be a lot of, horizontal throws. It's going to be a lot of bootlegs. It's going to be a lot of manufactured touches for the Giants playmakers. I would love to see Donovan Wilson just flying out there as he usually does, wearing that number 6, making those tackle for losses, blitzing, doing all of that crazy stuff. I hope Dono plays, man. I really do. I'm crossing my fingers. We still don't know anything about any of these guys that have missed practice. The Cowboys are reportedly waiting until Friday to see if they can get some work in, and maybe by then we'll have a game status or not. Anthony Perry says the Giants are gonna win. Tomorrow night, by the way, we have the prediction show, which is where we talk about the scoreboard, and I also drop a weekly bet on every Cowboys game. And last year, we had a fantastic record. I actually want to look back into what was the exact record that we had, because it was outstanding. We're not going to have those sort of results, I think, this year. Hopefully we do, though. But tune in tomorrow night for all of the predictions, by the way. Let's see here. The linebackers have to step up, says Gregory. I agree with that. I agree. Wilson will be a GDD, says Bob. Giants have a rookie center, says Miller. Oh. Miller is on something here. If you can see the outline of the show, we're going to get into the third matchup right now. Let's do it now, actually, just to get into what Miller is saying here. The Giants are starting a rookie center on Sunday night. Now, make no mistake, John Michael Smith, who is a center, is pretty good. He was one of the favorite prospects from the draft community. People were excited about him. People were hyping up the Giants pick as a steal when it happened during the 2023 NFL draft. But the guy is still a rookie. And I'm not gonna use that matchup as JMS versus Massey Smith or versus Jonathan Hankins, who are the most likely players that are going to line up across from him as the nose tackles of the Cowboys defense. In fact, what I'm going to do as a key matchup for this game is Dan Quinn versus the rookie center. Because if there's one thing that Dan Quinn does well, is get in the lab and draw up some crazy pressure designs with the group of hybrid players that he has. He has like 5 or 6 queens on the chessboard, and he can use them whichever way he pleases. And does that mean a lot of mucked up linebackers in the A gaps consistently? Does that mean Micah Parsons in front of him? Does that mean Leighton Van Der Esch walked up to the center to try to confuse the protections from the Giants throughout the entire game? From what we've heard on interviews from the Giants and media availability sessions, JMS as a rookie center is going to be calling the shots on offensive line as usual, right? In the NFL these days, sometimes it's a quarterback who's also calling protections and all of that. But a lot of teams, it's a center's responsibility to do that. And I think with the Giants, that's going to be the case because They've talked a lot about how he is as a communicator, how he can really take on that job and support it for a long time, and how he's an animal when it's time to block people. So there's a lot of hype regarding the rookie. But man, I think that Dan Quinn is going to give him some hell on Sunday night. I don't think that Dan Quinn is going to keep things vanilla against a debuting rookie center. I think he's going to do some wild stuff. And again, in a big way, that's going to mean showing a 5-man surface that forces the Giants into man blocking, right? Where maybe they cannot slide towards one way or another. And then some of those defenders are going to drop back into coverage. There's going to be some chaos. Really excited about what Dan Quinn can cook up against this kid. And if he shows up, man, and he is settled in and locked in, then the Giants have a good center in their hands, because it's not going to be an easy task, not with the players that the Cowboys have at their disposal. Cam says Massey and Parsons, hey, Dan Quinn can cook up some crazy exotic looks. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some looks where it's Massey and Micah next to each other. That would actually be super fun. Some of y'all might not know this, says Jamal. This is the 90s Cowboys defense right here. Darren Woodson played linebacker and safety, Brock Marion, James Washington. And that's the type of stuff we love to read, man. John Jones says, keep a spy on Daniel Jones. He's going to try and run. That's also a big part of the game, in my opinion. John Jones is on something there. Daniel Jones is pretty mobile, and sometimes we don't give him credit for that. He is extremely athletic. He is a very good runner. Looking forward to seeing how the Cowboys countered all of that and his dual threat skills. Cherky says Lawrence needs to dominate. And I was looking at the numbers from last year's game. He actually had more pressures than Micah in the Thanksgiving showdown. So he had 7 to Micah's 5. It's going to be cool to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the 3 matchups that were actually 4 that will define the games versus the Giants. Let me recap really quickly. We've got Micah Parsons versus Andrew Thomas. We've got Kayvon Thibodeaux versus Tyron Smith, so the flip side of the first one. And then Jaron Kears trying to erase Darren Waller. And finally, what can Dan Quinn do to confuse and put a rookie center through hell on his debut? That's going to be one of the biggest angles that I'm going to be looking at when the game kicks off on Sunday night. Because again, I think it's going to be some wild stuff. Concerning the injury report, yes, it is concerning. You've got Tyler Smith missing practice. You've got Donovan Wilson missing practice, and Sam Williams. It's a foot race with time, honestly, from here until game day. We know that there are soft tissue injuries. So it's also a risk and reward thing of, that studio light went like down. It was almost about to crash into the camera. Chaotic stuff on the primetime studio, ladies and gentlemen. But the good news is that we're about to get out of here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a fun week. We are 1 day away from the NFL kickoff. So by this time tomorrow night, we're going to be watching the Chiefs and the Lions go at it. We're obviously going to have prime time. So if you are into the idea of watching prime time while watching the game, hey, I want you guys here, 8 p.m. Central Time. You guys know it. That is paranormal activity, says Katharina. Colin says sniper. El Cuco says toxic. So yeah, a little bit of everything. I don't know what that was. It's definitely not the fact that it's taped together. It's not that, I promise. It probably has more to do with what you guys said in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be it for me tonight. Do me a favor, though, and hit the like button for me. Smash the thumbs up, because every thumbs up puts this show in front of more and more Cowboys fans, and that is the biggest thing that you can do for me to help grow the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you el día de mañana. Muchísimas gracias.